Hey everybody in the classroom, Tim here, and today we are talking about playing the piano level 4. So you've made it this far, you've made it pretty far in your piano studies. I congratulate you. In this course we are talking about 5 different composers, and today in this unit we're going to talk about Bach. But we're not just going to talk about Bach, we're going to talk about a lot of musical things as well, and how it applies to playing piano. After all, it's called playing the piano level 4. So let's just take a look at what we have going on today. Alright, so let's just get started here. So we're talking about his life, his musical works, and features of his music. Features of his music is probably the main topic we'll talk about for the duration of the video. So anyway, you want to know these facts by Bach. You want to know that he's born on March 21st, 1685. Knowing around what year he was born probably is the most important thing about that. Know he's from Germany. Know that you should probably know that his whole name is Johann Sebastian Bach. There are actually a lot of Bachs that are actually related to him that come later, but he is commonly known as J.S. Bach or Johann Sebastian Bach, and usually when people are talking about the Bach, they're talking about him. He's from a prestigious musical lineage and took on various organist positions during the 18th century. So just know he played organs for churches and wrote music for them. And you should know that he created the toccata and fugue in D minor. You want to know that he created the Mass in B minor. The Brandenburg Concertos, if you ever hear about that, you probably will if you study music. And the Well-Tempered Clavier, which is a collection of preludes and fugues in every single key. So I think that was a thing he did to kind of practice writing in different keys, and those are always good songs to learn. So if you've made it this far in your piano studies, you might want to pick up the Well-Tempered Clavier. It's a whole book full of, like I said, preludes and fugues, which are types of songs we'll talk about some other time. And just know he's considered one of the greatest Western composers of all time. Most of you have probably heard of him by now. If you want to learn more, you can check out this website here and go over his accomplishments. And that, for some reason, the view went crazy here. Great. Why did that happen? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So you want to know that he is best known for using counterpoint in his music, which is the relationship of the movement between notes. If you've seen the music theory courses and some of the other piano courses, we've talked about voices moving in the music. So when you have piano music or any kind of music, you have a bunch of notes playing at the same time. You have basically a bottom note, a middle note. You might have a couple of middle notes and a top note. These are called voices, and these voices move between one another. And if there's multiple voices moving between one another, that's what's called counterpoint. We'll talk about that in a minute. So to observe counterpoint, it went ahead, of course, to observe counterpoint, you must learn, or you must look at the music and voices, like we had just said. Okay. Let's look at Bach's Minuet in G and talk about the uses of voices in the song. So let's take a look and make it a reasonable size. Make sure everybody can see what I'm talking about mostly. So here we have the Minuet in G. If you notice that there is obviously a top melody line. So sometimes the melody can be on the very top with the right hand. In fact, it usually is. Sometimes it can be in the middle using a combination of your right and left hand fingers, or maybe your right hand fingers or left hand fingers. And then on the bottom there can be voices or some melodies that go on. So let's take a look at some of what we have here. So we have the top voice, the right hand. The right hand doesn't really play, the right hand by itself anyway, doesn't play harmony, meaning that it's not playing two notes at the same time. Notice how it's only playing one note. And this, for the song, is our melody. So that's a melodic line right there, going from left to right. Now if you notice, let's take the very bottom voice. We have a G, we have an A, a B, a C, B, A, G. Then it does some other things here, but notice how that in itself is almost a melody, and now it's not as exciting as the top one. But it adds to, when you play them together, it adds to the sound of the music. You can listen, the listener has more to listen to. They can listen to the top voice or the bottom one. Now there are two middle voices here, but they don't really do much, at least in this version. Yeah, I think this is pretty similar to the version I've had. But anyway, you notice there are two voices above in that chord. They just don't seem to do much with those. But this this voice here, G, A, B, C, B, A, G. I know I didn't play that in time, but you can think of that as another melody, and when you play them together, kind of adds some more texture. You know, we call that texture also when we have counterpoint or multiple melodies or lines of music going at the same time. So you want to look at music going from left to right, and in terms of voices. So when you see chords, like I said, you have a bottom voice, some middle voices, maybe 1, 2, or 3, and then a top voice. So you always want to look at music in terms of voices and where those voices move to. So that's kind of what we're going to, now that we have all the basics learned, most of the basics, we can begin looking at music in a different way in terms of how it's organized and kind of what the composer was going for with their musical ideas, which we'll also talk about in a minute. So let's go back to the slide, wherever you are. Here we go. All right. Okay, musical ideas and phrases using articulation. So if you look at the minuet in G again, you can observe some melodic ideas presented. We'll talk about this in a second because the next slide or two I have an example there. Notice how the musical ideas can be started on different notes. This is called sequencing, and it's commonly used in Bach's music. It is a feature of his music. It is used obviously in other music after him, but he was very well known for that. The use of articulations is important, which means the use of slurs. Whoops. Let me show you the piece of music actually. So if you notice, we have a quarter note by itself here, 5, with no articulation on it. So you just play that for the full value, and then you don't, you don't connect it to anything. So, and then you have these 5 notes all in a slur. So that's what I'm talking about, articulations. They give you more information about how to play the notes, and they have 2 staccato Gs. Notice how that creates a musical phrase or musical idea. And then the next 2 measures, a very similar idea. Now, not the same. They start on different notes, and it still steps up though. Notice how it goes from the E, goes down to the C, and climbs up to G, and then goes down. Now the intervals aren't exactly the same, but it's pretty close. It's very similar. So that's how Bach and many other composers create ideas, by creating either 2 measures or 4 measure ideas, and then they move them up and down the staff or up and down in the key, and that kind of creates some different, it creates structure to the music while making it different at the same time. So if music had no structure, it would sound very random, but the structure helps you follow along and makes it sound like music. However, if everything is always the same, it will sound very boring. It would be very boring if the whole song just sounded like this the whole time. Are you tired of it yet? But it's good. Up. As you notice, even on the second line, there are some musical ideas here that move up and down the staff. Now that is called sequencing. It's in the PowerPoint, so refer to that right here. And then articulations are things like slurs and staccatos, and they can help make phrases. So real quick, looking at the example again. On the second line, we have this C, then you have D, C, B, A, B. That's a musical phrase in itself. Normally you can tell where musical phrases begin and end with the slur, but sometimes there will be notes added before and after the slur, which is that arching line, to kind of add to it. Because you notice in the first line, there was that slur line in there, but there was also the staccatos before it, and then the note before it starts as well. So here we have C, D, C, B, A, B, so that's a musical phrase. Here comes another one, and then here's another one, designated by the slur line. So most of the time you can figure out where the phrases are, first of all, because they're grouped in, well, actually right here it's a measure, not even a measure, a portion of a measure. But normally they're grouped in measures or two measures, and you can follow them by looking at the slur lines. It gets a little more complicated than that, but for now that's what we will go with, because I think that's a pretty good introduction into what phrasing is all about. Okay, we talked about that, obviously. So here in the first two measures, we talked about this already. Here's phrase 1. By the way, I tend to use melodic phrase and musical phrase in the same definition. So if you notice I refer to it as a musical phrase, I'm talking about either like pretty much a melodic phrase or a musical idea, so kind of the same thing. So here in the slide it shows you what the musical phrases are. Again, keeping in mind, oops, sorry. On the left hand, you also have a, now they don't have any slur lines to it, but it basically is a little melody down there. Not the most exciting thing, but it's another line of music that can be observed. And of course isn't the main melody. So that's all we're going to talk about today. Take a look through the rest of Minuet in G, and now it is part of your playing examples for this week, and see if you can observe all of the different phrases. So here's a phrase. Whoops. So here, the B is not really part of the phrase. So look at the slur lines here. G, A, B, G, A. So there's a phrase, and then slur line here. So that's another phrase going up there. That's a scale, by the way. Should look a lot like an A major scale. Now if you notice, here's a good spot where you have D, G, F sharp G, E, G, F sharp G. So those are two little phrases there. In the left hand you have B, D, B, C, B, C. If you notice the top, this is getting a little confusing, but there's actually two lines of music within the left hand. If you notice, some of the stems are pointing down and some of them are pointing up. The ones pointing up designate a line of music. So here we have rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a second. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So that's the whole measure there. And then 1, 2, 3. Right there. So that's all there is to that melodic line. But in the bottom you have B, B, C, C, B, A, G, D. So that's why there's like a weird rest even though you're playing right there, because it's showing you that there are two different voices involved right there. So looking at voices can be kind of tricky at first, but after a while you get very good at picking those out, and looking at the voices will actually help your playing because you'll kind of think of music in a different and actually more musical way. So anyway, that does it for the introduction to Bach for today. You know, not a full in-depth analysis You know, you can make an entire college course on Bach for sure. But yeah, that's it for today. Just an introduction. Look forward to Mozart for Unit 2, but take a look at the playing examples and let me know if you have any trouble. Tim@LessonsOnTheWeb.com is where you can reach me, or by plugging in a question into the website. So thanks again, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Thank you.